Columbia University is now the first school to reach a negotiated settlement with the Trump administration over claims of anti-Semitism. As part of this agreement, the university will pay more than $220 million over 3 years to settle these claims of anti-Semitism on campus. And in exchange, the Trump administration will unlock the hundreds of millions of dollars, and I will add, unrelated scientific research funding that they froze to force Columbia to try to bend to its demands. And also as part of the deal, Columbia is not required to admit wrongdoing. The school saying this, that the institution's leaders have recognized repeatedly that Jewish students and faculty have experienced painful, unacceptable incidents, and that reform was and is needed. President Trump celebrated the deal overnight, posting this in part: "I also want to thank and commend Columbia University for agreeing to do what is right. I look forward to watching them have a great future in our country, maybe greater than ever before." Joining us here in studio for her first TV interview since announcing the settlement is the acting president of Columbia University, Claire Shipman. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, Kate.
I really
Good
appreciate
morning.
it. This is a very big moment for the school and for higher education and its relationship with the federal government.
Absolutely.
What was it that it was negotiated for quite some time? What was it that got this over the finish line?
So many things. Look, I think in the biggest possible of pictures, this resolution is really going to allow us to turn a page on a period of deep instability for our institution. I think, as you mentioned, it took us months of a lot of conversations, deep deliberation, and almost word by word negotiation. And our view was always we were willing to talk as long as the talks were productive. It took longer in many cases than we had anticipated, but we were willing to keep moving because the stakes were so high. And I think there are a couple of really important things about this agreement from our point of view. One, it doesn't cross the red lines that we laid out. It protects our academic integrity. That was, of course, essential to us. And two, it does reset our relationship with the federal government in terms of research funding. And that's, there's many headlines about $400 million. This is really access to billions.
It was a lot more than that.
Billions of dollars in future funding. And it's not just money for Columbia. I mean, this is about science. It's about curing cancer, the cutting edge, boundary breaking science that actually benefits the country and humanity. So that was essential.
How existential was the threat becoming? When you talk about, I saw over like $1.3 billion that the school was not losing. Yes. How existential was this threat to the university if it continued?
There are lots of ways to measure it. So $1.3 billion a year, billions in future funding. But we are a massive research institution, one of the best in the world. It's hard. We'd have to sit here for hours for me to tell you everything we do in terms of that boundary breaking research. And that's research really that powers the technology in this country, innovation, and of course all the biomedical research that so many people benefit from. So I think the stakes were high for us in terms of what we do. And by the way, for our students also, we're an incredible training ground for the future of science. But I think it's fair to say they're existential broadly for science in this country as well. We have to get that funding back on track.
Was the president himself personally involved in the negotiations at any point?
I don't have, he was certainly not personally involved in any negotiations that I was part of, and I don't really have a sense as to how involved he was. But I do think he was keeping track of what was going on.
What do you say to the criticism that you have already faced and spoken to, and you will answer to here, which is you threw in the towel and you are capitulating by making this agreement and bending to the will of the administration?
Yes, part of my role is to accept a lot of criticism, and that is what I have been ready for and have faced in recent months. I understand that, but I actually think the narrative that paints this as a kind of binary situation, courage versus capitulation, is just wrong. It's too simplistic. This was a really, really complex problem. And I will argue over and over again that choosing to listen, choosing to try to solve the problem with everything that we had at stake is not capitulation. It was extraordinarily difficult. It took an immense amount of effort from our board, from me, from our academic leadership team, from people who are working to keep the institution afloat.
Because you've got other examples, right? You have Harvard taking the administration to court.
Yep.
What was it that you saw and those around you that you didn't want to take that route? That this was you said it was very hard. Why not take the route and just go to court?
Look, and I've said this to our community openly, we kept all options at all times open. Yes, we had many other legal options, that's true. But we did look carefully at that, and we saw we could have some short-term victories, but we worried we would have long-term damage. For example, we could have faced the loss of any future relationship in the coming years with the federal government, and that would have effectively meant an end to the research mission we conduct as we know it.
And this is important for the university, but it is also a first. And the question is it a last? Like, are you worried with this of a precedent that this sets, that this proves that the Trump administration's strategy of weaponizing research funding works, and that this will lead them to do this more often, not less?
I can tell you, first of all, I am confident in the agreement we struck. We worked, again, on every word. So I am confident it does not cross our lines that were essential to us. Of course, I'm aware of the atmosphere in which we, are and were talking to the federal government and what other institutions are facing. It's a very complex moment for higher education. I respect every decision that every other institution is making and will make. I've had incredibly helpful, deep, thoughtful conversations with the leaders of other institutions. And I really think we are all facing many of the same issues. And I understand there may be different choices made, but this was the responsible path for Columbia. And I think it's a path that, again, is going to allow us to move on with the work we do so well.
And that is, and you said this was one of your red lines, but when it comes to independence and free expression and academic independence and free expression of your students, like, if people see this settlement and question if they can trust the school's academic independence now, question if students or anyone on campus that free expression will be allowed and not punished. What do you say to them? I mean, this is a core question.
Absolutely. Look, free expression is a bedrock principle for us at Columbia, and I would say at Columbia especially. We have a real history of celebrating free expression, and we always will, but not when it crosses the line into discrimination, harassment, calls for violence, or when it disrupts our ability to just conduct our work as an academic institution. So that is the challenge we've faced in recent years. And I think our systems are working better now. I think I would encourage everybody to read the agreement. It does not impinge upon that. But of course, there are always going to be lines on our campus as regards free expression if they're veering into that territory of harassment, discrimination, or disruption of our ability to function.
Yeah, I think this is a very big moment. I mean, you just came into the position in March, and what a few months this has been, but a very big moment for higher education, even far beyond Columbia. So thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. It's great to see you.